Those are main stories for you this morning at 7:10.
So a comprehensive review of the NHS in England says rising obesity levels and greater alcohol consumption have marred Labour's record on health over the last 13 years.
But the study by the health think tank, the King's Fund, also says considerable progress has been made since 1997. Let's talk to the Health Secretary, Andy Burnham. Morning to you. Thanks very much for joining us. Before we talk about that, can we just talk about what's been going on with the organ donation register? Can you be clear with us who has been affected and what's happened?
Well, the NHS Blood and Transplant Service will be making a full statement very shortly indeed. This relates to a technical error where data has been registered via the DVLA, so it does relate to about 800,000 records. But it's very important for me to say that for everybody on the affected records would not be used in any donation, so people can have complete confidence today in the register. There are some 21 cases that have been identified where a donation has taken place and incorrect information has been used about preferences. But I must add as well that that was in consultation with the individual's family, and the donor was on the register at their wish. But nevertheless, I deeply regret that has happened, and obviously steps are being taken to contact the families concerned immediately.
So it is the case that organs have been taken without the person giving their explicit consent?
Well, everybody who is on the register has consented to be on the organ donation register. In respect of the 21 cases, it would appear that people's individual preferences that they had made had not been accurately recorded. So when it came to a donation, obviously that information was incorrect. Nevertheless, a conversation always takes place with an individual's family, and in all of these cases that was the case too. But nevertheless, this really shouldn't have happened. This was a technical error, and it will cause, I'm sure, great distress to the families affected, and the NHS Blood and Transplant Service will be taking immediate steps to contact those affected. For everybody else, if people don't hear from the NHS Blood and Transplant Service, then they can be absolutely confident that their records are correct.
You say it shouldn't have happened. How was it allowed to happen? How did it happen?
Well, we will be finding out more details when an independent review is conducted into this, and I'll be announcing later today a review into this, and we do obviously need to get to the bottom of it. It would appear to relate to a technical error going back to 1999, and this was how data was transferred between the DVLA and the Blood and Transplant Service.
Okay.
That has now been corrected. There is no other problem with any other data flows within the donor system, but as you say, it should not have happened, and it must not happen again.
Okay, and you say there are no other problems. I mean, you know, I filled out my form last week. How do I know that my data is going to be saved properly?
Well, that's a very fair question. It's because now the service today writes to people to confirm that this was indeed their preferences. It's because we introduced a new system of that kind that this brought this problem to light. So for anybody on the register today or who's recently joined the register, I say again, they can have complete confidence. And it's really important for me to say that, because above all else here, we've got to uphold confidence in the organ donation system. It's crucially important to so many desperately ill people in this country. And the organs that people so selflessly give, obviously are a crucial gift of life to so many people. So maintaining confidence in the system is crucial, as well as dealing with the specific problem, and that's what the NHS Blood and Transplant Service are doing. OK.
Let's also talk about the King's Fund, which praised the faster treatment and easier patient access to services on the NHS in the last 13 years. They do say that more needs to be done, though, tackling major public health challenges like alcohol and obesity. That is going to have to be done, we all know, and I'm sure you'll admit this, on reduced funds. How are you going to do that if you win the next election?
Well, I mean, just to say firstly, I'm very pleased with the King's Fund report. Labour has always looked after the NHS, and this report bears that out. It's made really good progress since 1997. I believe we inherited a failing service. Today it's overwhelmingly a good service, providing good care to the vast majority of people. There are public health challenges today caused by lifestyle choices, but we are also making inroads there. Recent figures show that childhood obesity is levelling off, and we've taken great strides to bring down levels of smoking. I recognise there is still a challenge with alcohol and that really has to be a big priority for the coming decade. But overall, I think the report accurately captures the great strides that our National Health Service has made in the last decade.
Health Secretary Andy Burnham, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, and listening to that is Liberal Democrats Shadow Health Secretary, that's Norman Lamb. Very good morning to you. Now, we have very much two sides to this picture, don't we? We have significant improvements, as the King's Fund calls it, over the past 13 years. At the same time, looking ahead, which is what everyone is doing now, the election campaign underway. This £21 billion gap, they say, in funding in the NHS by 2014. That is a frightening figure.
Yes, it is. I mean, they're right to recognise that things have improved in many respects. So, for example, on waiting times, I can remember when I was first elected to Parliament in 2001, some people waiting over 3 years for hip and knee joint operations, for example. So that has improved, but it's been at enormous cost. And I think there's a general view that the use of money within the NHS has not been efficient. There's been lots of botched reorganisations, and now inefficiency is a luxury we can't afford. You're right to highlight the enormous challenge that the NHS faces. We've got continuing increases in costs, particularly because of lifestyle conditions like obesity and like alcohol abuse, and yet no more real terms increases of any significant size, whoever wins the next election. So the whole focus has to be on how we use the money more efficiently to make it go further, but also critically to continue to improve patient care, particularly in areas like mental health, where there are still really significant problems. Mental health isn't part of the 18-week access target. So for many people, you can be waiting months on end, waiting for treatment, for access to treatment, and that's got to improve.
Yes, can you give us an indication then? This phrase frontline services is one that's bandied around an awful lot in relation to public services at the moment, particularly in relation to NHS.
Sure.
Now, what are the Lib Dems saying about how much money should be spent relative to what we're spending at the moment, and about that phrase, frontline services?
What we want to do is to achieve real savings in the NHS by, in particular, reducing the ludicrously large bureaucracy, central bureaucracy, which dictates so much in the NHS, and reinvest that money into patient care. We've got to find new money from within the NHS to protect those services, and in particular to ensure that access remains good. You know, the report talks about improving cancer survival rates, for example, but you've got to ensure that people can get their treatment on time. That's one of the key things that improves survival from cancer. One of the particular concerns we have is that, I mean, we would give an entitlement to access treatment on time, and if you don't get your treatment on time, then the Lib Dems would pay for it privately. The Conservatives, by contrast, would abandon all targets. And the real risk is that we slip back, and the report highlights this, that we slip back into much longer waiting times, which we had back in 1997, if we don't use the money effectively.
Apologies for interrupting. I just wondered if you get one issue sort of clear. Under the Liberal Democrats, would you have no fewer doctors and nurses? Would the number of doctors and nurses increase in the NHS under the Lib Dems?
Yeah, we need to have the doctors and nurses that the service requires to provide care for patients. And the crazy thing is that in the last year, we've seen an increase of 5,000 in the number of managers employed. This is ridiculous. We've got to cut back on this bureaucracy and ensure that the money is reinvested in employing doctors and nurses, and ensuring that those services that patients rely on are protected in a really tough financial environment.
Norman Lamb, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
It's just coming up to 7:20, the headlines for you this morning. Poland starts a week of mourning after its president and a group of top officials are killed in a plane crash.
An investigation is ordered after the